The female pilot's hand clenched tightly around her phone, her voice sharp and laced with impatience. "There's a black kid causing trouble in the pilot's lounge. Get here immediately." She turned abruptly, glaring at the boy as if he were something less than human. "Get out. This place isn't for you." Captain Dana Whitmore, a seasoned pilot with Silverwing Airlines, stood rigid, her narrowed eyes locked on the teenage boy sitting nervously at the far side of the room. She didn't blink as she barked the command again. "I said leave." 17-year-old Malik Thompson's fingers trembled as he lifted his guest ID badge, holding it like a shield. "I'm just waiting for my guide," Malik said, his voice steady despite the fear tightening his throat. "MS. Sanders said I could sit here." "I don't care who told you what." Whitmore cut him off coldly, already lifting her radio to her mouth. "Security, report to the pilot's lounge. We have an unauthorized intruder." Malik froze. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. Moments ago, he'd been sitting quietly, watching a documentary on aviation history. He'd been excited, proud. After all, he had worked tirelessly for this moment. Malik, the bright-eyed black student who'd spent his childhood memorizing the sound of jet engines, who could draw the cockpit schematics of any major aircraft from memory, now stood in the very room he had dreamed of since he was 6 years old. But all of that was now slipping away. He'd earned his place here by winning Silverwing Airlines' highly competitive aviation discovery program, a program designed for students with exceptional interest and promise in flight. He'd beaten out hundreds of applicants through a heartfelt essay that told the story of his lifelong passion for aviation. And now, he was being treated like a criminal. The doors to the lounge banged open, and Captain Whitmore stormed in. She was a woman in her early 40s, her uniform crisp, her captain's stripes gleaming. But there was no warmth in her face, only suspicion. "You! We'll let you in here," she demanded. Malik stood carefully, his palms raised slightly in a gesture of peace. "I'm Malik Thompson, Mom, part of the Aviation Discovery Program. MS. Sanders from HR told me to wait here until my guide returns." Whitmore sneered. "This isn't a playground," she snapped. "And it's not for outsiders." Malik's throat went dry. He lifted his ID badge higher. "But I have permission. MS. Sanders." Before he could finish, Whitmore strode forward and yanked the badge from his neck. The lanyard snapped audibly. She inspected the badge for less than a second before announcing, "A fake." "I knew it." Malik's mouth opened, but no words came out. He could hardly breathe. "This is a restricted area," Whitmore said into her radio. "Security to the pilot's lounge immediately. We have an intruder, possibly using false credentials." Malik stood there, every fiber of his being screaming that this was wrong, but he couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't believe this was happening. His hands shook at his sides as the stares of nearby pilots and staff began to focus on him. Some curious, some suspicious, none friendly. The radio on Whitmore's hip crackled again. The sound snapped Malik out of his daze. He found his voice small but urgent. "Please," he said, "I didn't do anything wrong. MS. Sanders brought me here. She gave me this badge. I'm part of the program." But Whitmore wasn't listening. She turned to the gathering crowd. "This is exactly what we trained for," she announced. "This young man is attempting to infiltrate a sensitive area under false pretenses. We can't rule out industrial espionage or worse." A ripple of murmurs followed her words. Suspicion spread like wildfire. Malik felt his world closing in. He scanned the faces in the room, desperate for help. But no one stepped forward. Moments later, 2 security officers entered. The lead officer, a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with deep lines on his face, approached. "Young man," he said, "we need you to come with us." Malik's heart raced faster. He stepped back instinctively. "I'm supposed to be here," he said. "Please call MS. Sanders. She can confirm everything." But Whitmore cut in again. "We're wasting time. He's in a restricted area, carrying a fake ID. Deal with him." The officers moved closer. Malik's breath hitched. "Can I call my father?" he asked, his voice cracking. Whitmore sneered. "Go ahead. I'm sure he can explain why his son, is trespassing. Maybe he's on the janitorial staff. They'll both be looking for new jobs after this. Malik's fingers fumbled with his phone. Each ring stretched an eternity. His father, Leonard Thompson, was a senior official at the Federal Aviation Administration. He dedicated his life to aviation safety. But none of these people knew that. To them, Malik was just a black kid in a place he didn't belong. As the phone rang, Malik's mind drifted back to his childhood, to the times when his father took him to the airport to watch planes take off, to the endless nights they spent building model airplanes together, to the belief his father had always instilled in him. You belong to the skies, son. That belief was the only thing holding him together. Finally, his father answered. Malik? What's wrong? Malik's voice trembled as he explained. They think I'm not supposed to be here, Dad. They're saying I'm trespassing. They're calling security. They're saying terrible things. There was a pause. Stay calm, Leonard said, his voice steady. I'm on my way. Do not move. Those words were Malik's lifeline. But Captain Whitmore wasn't done. Oh, how cute, she said. Daddy to the rescue. This isn't a playground, kid. You're done. The minutes stretched on. Security officers flanked Malik, waiting for orders. And then, the walkie-talkie crackled again. Be advised. VIP from FAA inbound. The room fell silent. Moments later, the door swung open, and Leonard Thompson entered, his FAA credentials gleaming. He was flanked by senior FAA officials. Captain Whitmore paled. Leonard strode to his son's side, placing a firm hand on Malik's shoulder. Are you all right? He asked softly. Malik nodded, tears blurring his vision. Leonard turned to Whitmore. His gaze was cold steel. I'm Leonard Thompson, administrator with the FAA. I've been informed of an incident involving my son. Whitmore stammered. I didn't know who he was. I was just following protocol. You weren't following protocol, Leonard snapped. You were following prejudice. The room fell deathly quiet. Leonard continued. My son earned his place here. He was wearing a valid badge. You made unfounded accusations, publicly humiliated him, and endangered his future because of your personal bias. Whitmore had nothing to say. Leonard turned to the security officers. You're supposed to protect people, not harass innocent children. The officers lowered their heads. One step forward. Mr. Thompson, we apologize. Leonard nodded. Captain Whitmore, he said, turning back to her, you're suspended immediately. The FAA will launch an investigation into your conduct. Whitmore's shoulders slumped. She said nothing as two officers escorted her out. Malik stood taller beside his father. The weight on his chest eased. Later, Leonard spoke directly to the assembled staff. This industry must be a place of fairness and opportunity. We can't allow personal bias to determine someone's future. Not today. Not ever. Malik watched as heads nodded. Some pilots stepped forward to shake his hand. And then Captain Amara Johnson approached. A respected black female pilot. She smiled warmly. Malik, she said, you've been through hell today, but you belong here. Come see the cockpit. Let's show you where you're meant to be. Malik followed her, his father watching proudly. As he stepped into the cockpit, Malik knew he was home. And this was just the beginning.